Welcome to my channel BBC Rare Coins. Have you ever held a piece of American history in your pocket and not even realized it? Collision. This little coin, the Washington Quarter, isn't just spare change, it's packed with secrets, stories, and even hidden value. Moneybag, United States. Top 1. You're looking at what most people would toss into a vending machine, but this one. It's worth over $73,000. Yes, you heard that right, $73,000 for a single 25-cent coin, and it's not from the 1800s, it's a 1965 Washington Quarter. The kind millions of Americans had in their pockets every day. But one rare mistake turned this ordinary coin into a legend, a coin that collectors are desperate to get their hands on. In 1965, the US Mint made a huge change. They switched from 90% silver coins to a copper-nickel blend. No more silver quarters. But here's the twist, a few 1965 quarters were accidentally struck on 1964 silver planchets. That mistake created one of the rarest and most sought-after errors in US coin history. Now imagine this, you're sifting through your change and you feel something different. Heavier. Shinier. A 1965 date, but it rings like silver. That's the jackpot. Only a handful of these silver 1965 quarters are confirmed to exist. Each time one appears at auction, the price climbs. The most expensive sold for an eye-watering $73,000. And most people walk right past them without even knowing. So how do you spot one? Check the edge of the coin. If it doesn't have that copper-colored core, if it's all silver, you could be holding a fortune. And weigh it. A standard 1965 quarter weighs about 5.67 grams. The silver error. Closer to 6.25 grams. That tiny difference could be worth more than your car. It's the perfect storm of rarity, history, and mystery. A coin minted in transition. A ghost from the silver era. A mistake that became a millionaire's dream. Before you dump your change in the jar, take a second look. That one quarter could change your life. Because sometimes, the most valuable treasure isn't buried in the ground, it's sitting in your pocket. 1965 silver quarter, value, $73,000. Hashtag rare coins, hashtag 1965 quarter, hashtag Washington quarter, hashtag coin collecting, hashtag silver error. Top 2. You might think it's just pocket change. Just another quarter. But the 1972 Washington Quarter has a secret, and one rare version of it sold for a jaw-dropping $68,000. That's right. $68,000 for a coin most people wouldn't even look at twice. But not all 1972 quarters are created equal. One small detail, one rare error, and suddenly you're not holding 25 cents, you're holding a piece of American numismatic history. The 1972 Washington Quarter was part of the regular copper-nickel series. No silver, no flashy metal, just everyday coins made for circulation. But among the millions produced, a handful of quarters came out with critical mistakes. Minting errors so rare that collectors would pay tens of thousands just to own 1.1 of the most valuable types. The double die obverse. On these rare quarters, Washington's profile, the word liberty, in God we trust, and the date 1972 all show signs of dramatic doubling. The design looks like it was printed twice, slightly shifted. This was no ordinary misprint, it was a bold, visible mistake that escaped the mint's quality control and slipped into the hands of the public. Now imagine this. You're going through your change. You see a 1972 quarter. You take a closer look. Something's off. The letters look thicker. Doubled. The date almost has a shadow. That's not a trick of the light, that could be a 5-figure coin. Collectors crave these error coins. The 1972 double die quarter is so rare that when one in pristine condition hit the auction block, it pulled in $68,000. All because of one tiny mistake, one that most people would never even notice. But to the trained eye, it's a once-in-a-lifetime discovery, and that's not the only reason these coins are rare. Some 1972 quarters were struck on leftover silver planchets from earlier years. Others had off-center strikes, clipped planchets, or even missing clad layers, each one turning an ordinary coin into a one-of-a-kind collectible. It's the thrill of the hunt. The idea that hidden among everyday coins, there are treasures waiting to be found. That one of the rarest coins in US history could be sitting at the bottom of a change jar right now. So the next time you hold a quarter, don't just flip it and forget it. Look closer. Look for the signs. Because if you find the right 1972 Washington quarter, you might not just be holding change, you might be holding $68,000.1972 rare Washington quarter, value $68,000. Top 3. It's just a 1990 Washington quarter. Ordinary. Common. The kind you probably passed through your hands 1,000 times without a second thought. But hidden among millions of these everyday coins is one that turned heads, broke records, and sold for a staggering $69,000. A coin worth less than $1, yet someone paid enough for it to buy a brand new luxury car. Why? Because not all 1990 quarters are created equal. Some were struck with incredibly rare minting errors that transformed them into legendary pieces of American numismatic history. In 1990, the US Mint produced hundreds of millions of quarters. By that time, coin-making was nearly flawless, the equipment was modern, the process was refined, and mistakes were rare. But rare doesn't mean impossible. And when a mistake does happen in a system that's supposed to be perfect, that's when collectors go wild. The most valuable 1990 quarter known. A near-perfect specimen struck on the wrong planchet, not copper nickel clad, but on a leftover silver or foreign metal planchet, intended for another coin entirely. These errors are shocking not just for their rarity but because they shouldn't exist at all. They're freak accidents. One in a million, and that's what makes them worth tens of thousands. Imagine flipping through your change and finding a quarter that just feels different. Maybe it's heavier. Maybe it sounds like no other coin when it hits the table. Maybe it has a strange shine. You look closer, the details seem off. The edge doesn't show the usual copper stripe. You just might be holding one of the rarest modern coins ever struck. There's also the possibility of a double die, where the image, the lettering, or the date on the coin appears doubled, giving it a distorted, ghost-like effect. On a 1990 quarter, that kind of doubling is nearly unheard of, but not impossible. Add that to a rare planchet, a flawless surface, and a full, clean stripe, and now you have a coin that can demand an eye-watering $69,000 on the open market. And the craziest part: the coin that sold for that much didn't come from a vault. It came from circulation. A coin that someone probably got as change for a coffee. That's the magic of modern coin collecting. The idea that something so valuable, so historical, can be hidden in plain sight. So the next time you get a quarter in your hand, don't just glance at the date and toss it in your pocket. Look closely. Inspect the edges. Feel the weight. Listen to the sound it makes when it hits the table. That quarter might not be just 25 cents. It might be a collector's dream. It might be $69,000 waiting to be discovered, because in the world of rare coins, value hides in plain sight. And sometimes, the most extraordinary things come in the most ordinary forms. 1990 rare Washington quarter, value $69,000. Top 4. It looks like any regular coin. A simple quarter from 1980. Tossed into vending machines, dropped in couch cushions, forgotten in pockets. But what if I told you that one version of the 1980 Washington quarter has sold for an unbelievable $65,000, yes, $65,000. For a coin that's supposed to be worth just 25 cents. But this isn't just any quarter. This is one of the rarest, most valuable modern coins in US history, a coin that became a collector's dream, and most people don't even know it exists. The 1980 Washington quarter was produced during a time when the US Mint had perfected its modern minting process. But even in a system built on precision, mistakes can slip through, and those mistakes can become priceless. That's exactly what happened with a rare batch of 1980 quarters. A few were struck with dramatic minting errors that make them some of the most sought-after modern coins ever discovered. One of the most valuable versions. The 1980 quarter struck on a silver planchet, a leftover blank from earlier silver coin production. In a time when quarters were made with copper nickel clad, these silver planchet errors stood out immediately. They were heavier, shinier, and they rang with that crisp, high-pitched silver sound. And collectors went wild for them. Others came out with off-center strikes, broad strikes, or even missing clad layers, revealing the solid copper core beneath. But the true jackpot is finding a 1980 quarter that has it all: a rare planchet, a dramatic strike error, and nearly perfect condition. That's what made one particular coin command a $65,000 price tag at auction. But here's the real kicker: it wasn't sitting in a vault, or locked away in a museum. It was found in everyday circulation. Someone had it in their change. Passed from hand to hand, worth just 25 cents to the world, until one collector spotted the difference. That's how close this kind of fortune can be. It could be in your car's cup holder, in your old piggy bank, or in the next handful of change you get from the store. So what should you look for? Check the edges. If you see all silver and no copper stripe, that's your first clue. Weigh it. A standard 1980 quarter weighs 5.67 grams. A silver error? Around 6.25 grams. That tiny difference could mean a massive payday. And if the strike is off-center, the lettering is doubled, or there's something about it that just looks different, don't ignore it. That's how treasure reveals itself. The 1980 Washington quarter doesn't just represent a rare coin. It's a symbol of hidden value, of overlooked history, of a small piece of metal that can change someone's life overnight. So before you toss your change aside, take a second. Look at every quarter. Because the next one you hold might not be worth just 25 cents. It might be worth $65,1980. Rare Washington quarter. Value, $65,000. Top 5. It's a coin you've probably seen 1,000 times. The 1992 Washington quarter. Just another piece of pocket change, something most people wouldn't think twice about. But hidden among the ordinary is a version of this coin so rare, so shocking, that one sold for a jaw-dropping $58,000. That's not a typo. $58,000 for a single quarter. The year 1992 marked the 200th anniversary of the U.S. Mint, and quarters from that year were just like most others, made of copper nickel clad, mass-produced, and circulated all over the country. But a few escaped the minting process with a secret. A few were struck using proof dies on regular circulation planchets. Some were made with no mint mark. And the most legendary of all, the ones struck using silver-proof planchets by mistake. These rare 1992 quarters look almost identical to the regular ones. Same size, same design, same weight, or so it seems. But they carry subtle differences that set them apart, and for the trained eye, those differences are worth tens of thousands. Imagine someone going through a handful of coins, maybe counting change, maybe sorting through an old coin jar, and they find it. A 1992 quarter that looks just a little different. The edge doesn't have the usual copper stripe. It's a clean silver tone all the way through. They check the weight, slightly heavier than normal. They feel it. They tap it. It rings like silver. That tiny detail, that rare silver planchet used by mistake, is what makes this coin a legend, and the story doesn't end there. Some 1992 quarters have been found with close AM lettering on the reverse, a spacing error where the A and M in America are almost touching, unlike on standard quarters where they're clearly separated. This design feature wasn't supposed to appear until later, and when it shows up on a 1992 coin, it sends collectors into a frenzy. Put these traits together: a silver planchet, a close AM reverse, flawless condition, and no mint mark, and what you have is not just a rare coin, you have a numismatic bombshell. That's what made one of these coins command a $58,000 sale price at auction. It didn't come from a museum or a collector's vault. It came from everyday change. It was sitting in someone's drawer, forgotten, until someone looked just a little closer. So what should you do? Check every 1992 quarter you find. Look at the edge. Is there copper? If not, that's your first clue. Weigh it. A standard quarter weighs 5.67 grams. A silver planchet version, around 6.25 grams. Look at the reversed, are the A and M in America almost touching. That's another clue. Every detail matters. This is the beauty of coin collecting. It's not just about old, dusty coins locked away in cases. It's about everyday objects that turn out to be hidden treasure. A 25-cent coin that becomes a down payment on a house. The 1992 Washington quarter is more than just change, it's a symbol of how history, error, and chance can collide to create something truly extraordinary. 1992 rare Washington quarter, value $58,000.